time to think about it when you're obeying what God says to do at the time. And it's another thing when you know you'll have this appointment for a while, and as it gets closer and closer, the more nervous you get. So, and especially, and Max told me, he said, now you know how I feel. I said, well, I said, the thing of it is I said, you've been preaching enough years to where it don't even faze you anymore. Anyways, I have prayed and I have prayed about the message, and of course I was bouncing around with a lot of different messages, and the one message and the one thing that kept coming to me is faith.
All right, that's good.
Faith.
Amen.
Where are we without our faith?
Right.
And without our faith, can you be saved?
No.
No. Because it takes faith.
Yes, it does.
Amen.
Amen.
What does faith have to do with being saved? We have to have the faith that Jesus Christ died for our sins.
Amen. Yes.
And that He arose. Not just that He died, but the miracle in it was not His death. The miracle in it is His resurrection.
Yes.
Because it was foretold, it was prophesied way back in the Old Testament that there would come a Messiah. There would be one to come without sin. And He would be sent for our ultimate sacrifices. Could you imagine if we had to sacrifice like they did in the Old Testament? I couldn't imagine it. Honestly, I would be destined for hell because I couldn't afford it.
Amen.
I could not afford the sacrifices that were required in the Old Testament. And I thank God that He sent Jesus Christ, the ultimate sacrifice, the only sacrifice that is required of us to be able to accept it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read some scripture. I did make me some little notes here because in my study and stuff, my mind it kept going everywhere, and you know, I wanted to preach faith. Once God told me faith, so then I started looking at all the faith scriptures, and I'm thinking, Lord, we won't be there till midnight reading all the, you know, all the faith. So anyway, we all know the faith chapter, which I'm not going to go there and read, is Hebrews chapter 11. That is full of faith. It's talking about all the faith of, you know, from Isaac to Joseph to Moses, Joshua, Rahab. And you know, I remember reading it, I've even studied it, I've even taught it. But then it caught me again today when I was reading about it. Rahab. She was a prostitute. And you know, according to the Bible, Rahab went to heaven.
Amen.
Why? Because she had faith. Now back then, women that were prostitutes, and women in the streets, women in the corners, you didn't get no lower than that. That was low for a woman back then. It's still low for a woman now to have to sell herself, give herself in order to have the things that she needs or wants or whatever. But back in biblical time, that was a stoning. You got stoned to death for that.
Amen.
But you know, Rahab, through her faith, she even became queen. She was no longer the filthy, ragged woman that everybody thought to be nasty, and of the pigs and of the swine. That says a lot. That says a whole lot. And Jesus Christ does that for us today.
Hallelujah.
And I mean, some of us hasn't been as low as being a prostitute or selling ourselves or whatever. But the thing of it is, in the eyes of God, sin is sin. Amen. It doesn't matter what sin you do. Sister, here, and I'm not saying lying. The sister here could tell a lie, and another sister over here could go out and be a prostitute. And this sister here is going to go to the same hell.
Exactly.
And we've got the faith to get there.
Exactly.
And that is the faith of Jesus Christ. So anyways, and I had wrote down some others. In the faith chapter, there was Abel. He offered a better sacrifice than Cain did. Enoch, he was told that he should not see death. Noah, listen, he was crazy enough to listen to God when God said to build the ark, and everybody else was making fun of him and talking about, what are you talking about? It's not going to flood and all this stuff. Noah's family was saved because he was crazy enough to listen to what God had to say.
Amen.
Abraham, and this reminded me of Max and myself, that Abraham went to a new life and a new country in faith.
Man.
How many people do you know nowadays? If you really knew our financial stability of our church, of our own personal life, and everything else, you would think, man, they are totally nuts for trying to buy church. I mean, you really would. But through faith, come believing that God given. So God's going to take care of us.
Yes, He will.
We worry about the things that has to be done and how we're going to get it done and all that stuff, but you know what? God's going to take care of it. He always has. And sometimes when you're really sick and you're really tired, your faith gets little and it gets low, and we have to go and get a refill.
That's right.
And you know, we've been working on the roof, and when we started buying it and looked at it, the roof is leaking, and we went and Max and Dave and George and Brother Glenn, they've been patching on our roof, and we just knew. I mean, they was doing these little teeny tiny nail holes, and we just knew that we was going to go the other day, and everything was going to be dry. Max and I went to my mom's. Every now and then, when the children and life really starts getting to me,
Yes.
I run away to my mom. Just for a few hours, or maybe just overnight. And where we've been packing and working, I have not been able to scrapbook or craft or anything like that. So I was really going into DTs here. I was tired in body, I was hurting, I just needed to get away. So I went to my mom's the night that it was storming and stuff, and the next morning I was coming home, and I called Max, and I only lived, 6 minutes from my mom's house. Anyway, I called him on my way home, and I said, well, since it's raining, and it's been raining so hard, I said, get Mason ready, and we'll just go ahead and ride on down to the church and check it out to see how many leaks we have or don't have. Well, we walked in, and I think both of us was about ready to cry, because it seemed like everything that they had worked so hard on, we looked up, and all we could see is wet and moisture. And even more than there was the last time it rained. And Max told me, he said, I don't know when we'll be able to get moved into the apartment, because we are planning on moving our family there, because it has an apartment built onto it. So we were going to live there and be completely full-time in the ministry.